Hello everyone and welcome to this review of Q1 2022 for high streets. Today we'll look at the data for 2022 so far and how high streets have performed, including recovery into 2019. Before that, I'll hand over to Di for a brief overview of Springboard for anyone unfamiliar with what we do.
Hello everyone, I'm Diane Worrell, Springboard's Marketing and Insights Director. For anyone who isn't familiar with Springboard, I thought it would be helpful to give a quick tour of what we do. We deliver data and insights on customers in destinations and also in bricks and mortar stores. Our key metric is footfall, that's the volume of customer activity, and we track footfall across the UK. We have a network of counters tracking footfall continuously 24 hours a day at around 4,500 locations, and we cover around 250 towns and cities. This map shows our coverage in high streets, and you can see that we track footfall across all regions of the UK. Our coverage includes all of our regional cities, but also a huge range of towns of different sizes and functions, from large town centres to small local high streets. In fact, we've adopted what we call a hub and spoke approach to our coverage, ensuring that every regional city is included, as these are the hubs of economic activity within each region, but then also smaller towns in the region. This means that in any one region, we're tracking footfall in towns that account for around 2/3 of all spend. And nationally, this has ensured that the correlation between our coverage and spend nationally is very high. In fact, around 93%. So our data accurately represents the retail landscape across the UK. The relevance of our footfall data is demonstrated by the fact that we're a partner of the High Street Task Force, delivering footfall data so the task force can understand high street performance. And we also provide data to both BEIS, the Department of Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy, and the ONS, the Office of National Statistics. And in fact, our data features in the ONS's weekly Faster Indicators report that tracks the impact of COVID-19 on economic activity.
Thanks Di. Now we'll look at the data for the first quarter of 2022. So let's just refresh our memories on what was happening in Q1 last year. As we said at the time, 2021 was defined by COVID recovery and our efforts across the country to start returning to normality. There were three key points throughout Q1 2021, and the main event for this review is the introduction of Lockdown 3 being brought in almost immediately on the 6th of January, or week 1 of 2021. While we'll look at how 2022 compared to 2021 for different destination and town types, in the main we'll be comparing to the data from 2019, the last normal year before COVID took hold in England. We'll start with a view of 2022 versus 2021 for Q1. In the blue we have all UK destinations, then there are two subsets of this data. In orange are UK high streets, while in grey are English high streets. So we can see here that UK and English high streets performed almost identically over Q1. We can also see that high streets as a subset outperform the entirety of UK destinations. The year-on-year percentage change for high streets, both English and the wider UK, was higher throughout Q1 than UK destinations as a whole. This indicates to us that people were returning to high streets faster than they were to other destinations. However, when we then look back to understand how high streets are performing compared to the last normal year, 2019, we can see that even with the faster increase in people to high streets, they're still lagging behind all destinations when compared to 2019. It seems that compared to pre-COVID days, high streets are currently faring worse than UK destinations in general. And while English high streets are slightly above the UK figure, the difference is pretty marginal. Sticking with comparisons to 2019, here we can break down the other destinations within England, so we can see English retail parks, English shopping centres and English high streets in direct comparison. From this chart we can see that retail parks remain the clear winners, and given the mix on those sites they fared well throughout the pandemic, and the drop they're seeing compared to 2019 could be seen to be the natural gradual decline in footfall that we might have expected across all destinations if the pandemic hadn't happened. However, high streets and shopping centres are clearly not back to that same level. It's also interesting to see the impact that Storm Eunice had in week 7, where high streets were particularly affected, shopping centres to some degree, whereas retail parks didn't seem to see any impact from Storm Eunice whatsoever. Looking at UK high streets now broken down by town types shows there's a consistent change across Q1 when compared to 2019, including the definite dip in week 7. Central London and regional cities still have the most ground to make up, and this is likely due to the changes in working patterns, with hybrid working models becoming more accepted and prevalent. The opposite is true of Greater London and regional cities. While still down on last year, they've not suffered nearly as much. Storm Eunice during week 7 clearly had some impact across all town types. Perhaps unsurprisingly, the greatest impact was seen in coastal towns and market towns. Zooming in on London and other regional cities for a moment, London shows there's a marked difference between central and greater London, with central London continuing to suffer from the working at home models, as we've talked about previously, while the suburbs are much less affected, and to the point where greater London suburbs were the best performing of all the town types. Regional cities, excluding London, sit sort of in between the two, and so it's likely that they also saw a similar pattern, with the centres worse hit than the surrounding areas. Storm Eunice in week 7, we can see again, had a greater impact in the suburbs than in the centre of London, and the return to pre-storm levels took a couple of weeks and didn't really go away until week 10. Taking 2019 as a baseline, this chart shows 2021 and Q1 2022 compared to that baseline. When we do this comparison, we can see that the news is not so rosy for high streets. As we can see from this chart, compared to normal times, the high street subset have and continue to suffer to a greater degree than all destination types. All isn't lost though. We can see a general upward trend since Freedom Day, and we would hope to see this continue for the rest of the year, which would mean us ending up in a stronger position than we were as we start to be able to compare to post-lockdown 2021. At this point, which is week 25 onwards, year-on-year comparisons will start to become more useful again. Taking that a little further, we're looking now at just English high streets, English retail parks and English shopping centres, still for 2022 and 2021 versus 2019. And we can see that all destination types are on course to hopefully see an improvement in footfall compared to immediately post-lockdown. Lastly, we'll look at how the various day parts have been affected for English high streets. I've not included a comparison to 2021 here, since the easing of lockdown only really started in week 13, so the chart would be meaningless. However, we've compared to 2019 to see how things have changed. It appears that all day charts are following a very similar pattern. Interestingly though, both early evening and nighttime footfall have seen a marginally smaller decline than daytime. Again, this could be due to working ways changing and people being less likely to step outside from home rather than from the office. And we can see again here the impact of Storm Eunice in week 7. Thank you for your time today. I hope you found some useful information in this webinar. Until next time.